Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the From That Sideline podcast with Francis
and Peter. And today, there's a lot of news in the football world. So, to start off, we're going to be talking about our college football reactions, conference championship game reactions, and the committee reactions. And then we're going to be giving our predictions for the college football playoff. Then we're going to be moving on to NFL. Going to be talking about the MVP race and how Dak Prescott's definitely in the lead for that. Then we're going to discuss who's the best team in the NFL. And then to finish off the episode, we're going to talk about Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill and who's going to be the offensive player of the year.
Yeah, and I think we're going to end our game because it's just like so like Peter's like out. I think he might be negative now, and I'm at like 20-something points, so it's not really close. So we'll do it again next season, but right now we're going to end it. So thank you for listening to this. Make sure you listen to the full episode. Follow us if you haven't already, and make sure you listen to the other episodes and stay tuned for more. All right, let's get right into it.
All right, so we're going to start off with the biggest news in the college football world, in the football world in general. Florida State, an undefeated Power 5 conference champ, was left out of the college football playoff in favor of one-loss Alabama and Texas, which, I mean, there's been a lot of controversy around it. Some people love the decision. Some people are just absolutely furious over it. So we're going to be giving our opinions on it. So I'm going to start it off. I mean, it's just a travesty. I mean, that's kind of a pun. But it's just horrible that a team like Florida State, who won all their games, they did everything that was asked. Even if it wasn't pretty at the end of the season, and even if they lost their star quarterback, you should still never leave an undefeated team out, even if you think they're worse than another. It just sets a bad precedent for, I mean, I know we're moving to a 12-team playoff, but it sets a bad precedent in the future that you're just going to, it's hard for teams who aren't in the SEC or the Big Ten to get in the college football playoff because their conference are weaker, or because their conference is weaker. I mean, Florida State won all their games. They did everything that was asked of them, and they were still left out in favor of the SEC and in favor of the bigger team, the more popular market. I mean, I know it's Alabama, but they have teams they have fans across the entire United States. So I know Alabama would smoke Florida State. I know Washington would smoke Florida State. I know Texas would smoke Florida State. I know Michigan would smoke Florida State. But that's not the point. They deserve this spot in the college football playoff because they earned it. It's not about the spread of those games, and it's not about a blowout. It just sets a bad precedent to not leave them out because they deserve to get it in. They won all of their games. So going to move over to you, Francis. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Last episode, we didn't even think or touch over the possibility that Florida State wasn't going to make the playoffs if they won against Louisville in the ACC championship. We thought it was an absolute lock that they would be the 3 seed with the win over Louisville. And so, yeah, it's just like, but I understand where the committee is coming from as well. Like, if you look at it from their shoes and their perspective, like, I mean, Florida State, they said that they want to put the best 4 teams in, not the most deserving team, but they want to put the best 4 teams in, which I agree Alabama and Texas are better. But then you also have Georgia, who you were saying is the number 1 team in the nation for the entire season, and just because of their one loss to the number 4 seed Alabama by less than 1 score, they're going to leave them out, because I think they're easily a top 4 team in the college football world. And so, I mean, there's just a lot of loopholes, and there's just a lot of holes in their logic. So, I mean, obviously with only 4 teams and making it the playoffs, it's going to be a really hard decision, and somebody's going to be left out. But the way the committee has run it before in the past, you just can't leave Florida State out here. Like Peter said, they're a Power 5 team that won their conference undefeated, and they've proven that they've beaten good teams like LSU. It's just like, just because they lost their quarterback, if they had Jordan Travis still, I think they're easily in the playoffs, but just because they lost their quarterback, they decided to leave Florida State out. And also, Peter talked about money and big market. Texas is one of the most popular teams in college football, and obviously so is Alabama. But Texas has been one of the most popular college football teams for a while now, and Texas fans have always been saying that this is going to be their year. And, you know, it's just like, they're one of the more they're like, I don't know if the Dallas Cowboys is a good comparison for them in the college football world, but they're that popular with their fan base is that big. So I also think there's a little bit of marketing based in this as well, because Florida State's not really a big market team. But yeah, I just don't think you can leave Florida State out in this situation. But I mean, I'm happy that we're not playing Alabama as a 3 seed, so that's good. And also, we had a debate of Texas or Alabama and who the committee would choose, and obviously they put Texas over Alabama, so I guess Peter won that debate. But yeah, Florida State should not have been left out, and I think it's really disappointing that they did get left out. Alabama, Texas, one of them I think should have been left out in the spot of Florida State because of all the reasons I just said. Moving on to the other conference championship games. We're going to talk about the Pac-12 championship real quick, UW versus Oregon. I mean, we're so excited. I'm going to hand this one over to Peter, but I mean, there's so much hype going into this, especially for Oregon, and we just knew the whole time Washington was going to come out with this one. So, Peter, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just want to take a victory lap here. Personally, I've heard so many Oregon fans talking about Bo Nix and talking about how they were going to blow us out. But I've been watching this team the entire season, all of last season, and I've just seen how much we've evolved, how much this team works together, and I knew Oregon doesn't do that. And this UW team fights and wins no matter what. They don't care about adversity. They don't care about what the media thinks. They don't care that there's a 9.5-point spread. They took that, they used it as motivation. They thought it was disrespectful, and they handed it to Oregon. I know it was only a 3-point game, but UW was in control mostly the entire game. They gave up that lead. It was 20-3 at one point, and then they were up 34-24. They gave up a late touchdown, but it didn't really end up mattering that much. So I do think this proves that UW is easily a national title. They should not have the least odds for the national title, because they've proved themselves time and time again this season against Oregon, who everyone was saying was super good, was debatably the best team in the country with the Heisman at quarterback, and the UW defensive line, offensive line, secondary, and receivers, quarterback, everyone just outperformed and outskilled Oregon. And I think this success is going to continue on to the college football playoff against Texas. Everyone talks about Texas D-line, but the truth is their secondary is really weak, and UW's biggest strength is their passing attack. They have the best receiver core in the nation. They got the Heisman runner-up at quarterback. Could have won the award, but I think Daniels deserved it. But regardless of that, this is a great matchup for Washington. They can pick Texas's weak secondary apart with McMillan, going on those short routes, and then Polk and Odunze as deep threats. It's going to be a long day for the Texas defensive backs, and Washington's O-line is really underrated, so as long as they can provide sufficient performance, it doesn't have to be great against that Texas defensive line. I think it's going to be a good day for Washington. What do you think, Francis?
Well, I wouldn't say the UW O-line is underrated, because we just won the best offensive line in the nation. So, but yeah, our offense, I think we've proven that we have the best offense in the college football, in the FBS, and I think honestly, I would say that we have one of the best offenses in college football history. And I mean, our wide receiver core is one of the best of all time. Rome Odunze played through injury. That just proves how much he really wants to win, which is really what you're looking for in a wide receiver one. After McMillan went out, he knew that we couldn't afford to lose him too. With a punctured rib and a punctured lung and a broken rib, he fought through it and played a couple games with it. He hasn't missed a game this entire season. Michael Penix has also played through injury as well. So I mean, yeah, Bo Nix really did not look great in this Pac-12 championship game, and I think it really lowered his draft stock. Every single deep ball he threw was inaccurate and looked like it was panicked, and he just did not look like a pro-level quarterback in my eyes, and Michael Penix really did. He was super accurate and was just on the money. UW really performs in clutch situations, and Oregon obviously doesn't. Yeah, like Peter said, we were in control for most of the game, and I wasn't really concerned at any point in this game, even when Oregon took the lead, because I knew that Washington could just storm down the field and get an easy touchdown. The only reason Oregon scored was just because UW's little mistakes, and like we saw Oregon score that one 60-yard, 70-yard touchdown that should have just been a 20-yard gain, but we missed at least 3 tackles that should have stopped him. So yeah, I mean our defense has to step it up if we want to win against Texas and then in the national championship in Houston. But our offense just looked top tier, man. I mean Dylan Johnson has stepped it up. He's evolved his game. Odunze, Polk, McMillan, and then our offensive line, Michael Penix. We're in a good spot right now. There was never a doubt in my mind that we're going to beat Oregon and prove the haters wrong. So, yeah, moving on to the SEC championship. Alabama defeats Georgia. So, Peter, what are your thoughts on that game?
I wouldn't say I'm that surprised by the result, honestly. Alabama's offense it's miles better than Georgia's. They have a way better quarterback. Carson Beck is just not it. I've kind of been talking about this all season, not on the podcast, but he's another one of those quarterbacks, especially the ones that Georgia has, Jake Fromm, Stetson Bennett, who's just like a game manager. They don't win the game for you. And Jalen Milroe, although he's not, at a Heisman candidate level yet, he's still miles better than Carson Beck because of his ability to extend plays and win games for Alabama, like we saw in that 4th and 31 against Auburn. He's able to, put the game when the game is in his hands, he can win it for them, and Carson Beck can't do that. So Alabama's offense just overpowered Georgia's elite defense. They just kind of picked them apart, and they won pretty handily. I mean, it looked pretty close, but you could tell Alabama was similar to the Washington-Oregon game. You could tell Alabama was in control, like the whole game. So they have more weapons and they have more star players, and they just overpowered Georgia, and unfortunately Georgia got left out of the playoff.
Yeah, Alabama's offense really scares me, especially Jalen Milroe. He's like a Jalen Daniels, but slightly worse, I would say. But Jaden. I said Jaden, right? I said Jaden. Well, Jaden Daniels, but slightly worse. I mean, just with the passing ability, but I would say their rushing ability is the same, and honestly Jalen Milroe is probably a better rusher, to be honest, but his passing needs to get a little worked on, get a little tweaked, but he should easily be the Heisman favorite for next year. But this really just proves how lackluster of a quarterback Carson Beck is, and how they really need to fill that position either with him. It's going to be him next year again, obviously, but he really needs to step it up for next year if they really want to contend for the national championship. So yeah, this really proved that Georgia's offense was not elite whatsoever, and their defense, we've thought of their defense as the best in the nation this whole season, and Alabama and Jalen Milroe really proved that they have an even more elite offense to take down the Georgia's defense. So yeah, they're a scary team, and I really don't want to go against them or Michigan, but I know we're going to make it to the national championship. We're going to have to play one of them, so we're going to face a challenge head on. But yeah, Peter pretty much covered it, but I just wanted to take away that Jalen Milroe is absolutely elite, and I don't really know what the formula is to stop him for defenses. So,
okay, so we're going to be moving on to the MVP race, and specifically Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. Dak's the clear front runner right now to me. He's just, a lot of people are going to say Brock Purdy, but I think deep down everybody knows that it's similar to Milroe and Beck. Dak can actually win you games, even if Cowboys haters, call him a system quarterback. He wins games for you, and he's been performing at an elite level the entire season. That Cowboys offense is stacked. Their defense is what's been holding them back. There's zero problems with the offense. They have so many elite players, even though Pollard hasn't been playing up to the best that he can be. That Dallas offense is still stacked. CeeDee Lamb, great receiver for Dak, and if you look at the stats, he's doing pretty well right now. And Purdy, it's just when people try and say that he's the MVP, it's not that hard to just look at the San Francisco 49ers offensive roster, and you see, Like, they have so many elite weapons, and all he does is check it down, and if they're wide open to him, he'll throw it deep. He doesn't do anything special whatsoever, and he can't win a game for you. He reminds me of Jared Goff when the Rams went to the Super Bowl. Everyone was trying to say that he's good. Everyone's trying to say that say that he's elite. Everyone's trying to say that he's an MVP candidate during the season. And then when the lights shine bright and it matters most, he folds under pressure because he can't go out and win a game for you. And Dak can. Brock can't. So, yeah, I think Dak's the clear runner, or the clear front runner for the MVP right now. And the Cowboys are on a hot streak.
Yeah, I completely agree, Peter. Dak is easily the front runner for MVP right now. And if things keep going this way, there's really nothing that will change my mind, that because we only have 4 weeks left in the NFL season, so I don't see how Dak doesn't win this. The only way is if Brock Purdy somehow wins a bunch of votes, but from what I've seen in the first however many weeks we've played, the majority of this season so far, Brock Purdy has proven to me he is really not elite, and people are really overreacting and thinking he's elite. When Christian McCaffrey went down to injury and he was gone for 3 games, those 3 games they lost 3 in a row, which they're only 3 losses of the season. And also Deebo Samuel was out for that stint as well. So he still had a lot of weapons like Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, who are both 2 elite players and 2 of the best at their position. So there's no argument that Brock Purdy, like, all of his weapons were gone, because he had still 2 elite weapons that he could pass to. But when he doesn't have all of his weapons, he looks pressured. But then when he has all of his weapons, he looks cool, calm, and composed, because how can you not look cool, calm, and composed when you have 4 insanely elite weapons? It shouldn't be fair that they're all on the same team. He has 4 elite weapons that he can throw down to, and one of them is going to be open every single time. He can just run it to Christian McCaffrey, and when defenses don't expect it, he'll do a play-action pass, and then Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, or George Kittle will be wide open, and it's easy first downs and easy touchdowns. Brock Purdy, sometimes I'll admit he'll make special plays, but that's only because, like I said, he feels comfortable when he has all these weapons. And which quarterback wouldn't? I feel like every quarterback in his situation could perform the way Brock Purdy is performing. Dak, on the other hand, yeah, he has an insanely talented offense. One could say the best in the NFL. But Dak has proven with his pocket presence, his legs, and his past performances in past seasons that he is really special. And Dak Prescott has been making the throws and winning the games against elite defenses. Dak Prescott is doing something that Brock Purdy could never do. And, the Cowboys should be the number 1 seed in the NFC if all things go well. Their defense, like Peter said, there are some holes in it, but they've been performing really well. At the start of the season, they were easily the number 1 defense in the NFL, and guys like Stephon Gilmore have stepped it up recently. So their defense has been stepping it up. They have elite guys like Micah Parsons, and I wouldn't really call Deron Bland elite, but they have good players like Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore, Micah Parsons, and even veterans like DeMarcus Lawrence. So they have a lot of special players. Yeah, and so when you look at the best team in the NFL, or one of the 2 best teams in the NFL, which I think are the 49ers and the Cowboys, you got to look at their leader, which is Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott, and those are the 2 frontrunners for MVP. And I just think that Dak Prescott has been performing at a much higher level than Brock Purdy has, and it's really proven. So, still staying on the same topic of the 49ers, we're going to talk about Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill. Who would you rather have, or who do you think is a better player? I just saw a TikTok recently, and I knew Tyreek Hill has been playing at an elite level, but man, has he been playing at an elite level, like something we've never seen before, like one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time. Better than Cooper Kupp season 2 seasons ago, I think. He's averaging 150 yards per game, and he's doing it at a level so highly. In some games, he's not even playing a whole quarter, and he's still having 150 yards. Defenses just can't guard him, even though when they know he's coming. So that's when I came up with the question, who would I think is better, Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill? But all that being said, I still think it's Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey has just proved time and time again since he was on the Panthers that he's easily the best running back in the NFL. And I thought his play was gonna get decreased because of his injury, his big-time injury that kept him out for an entire season. But he came back to the 49ers and has been playing as easily the best running back in the NFL and has been, even on this insanely talented 49ers offense, I think he's even carrying them. I would go as far as to say he's carrying their offense. When defenses don't know what to do in the run, defenses just plan for the run game against the 49ers because of Christian McCaffrey, which is why their pass game is so elite. Christian McCaffrey makes defenses panic, and even when they know he's coming, they can't stop him. He's playing at an insane level of pace. I think he has a touchdown in every game he's played this season, which is insane, and he's just a go-to guy. You know you can surefire just get an easy gain, easy first downs, easy touchdowns whenever you hand him the ball. Yes, Tyreek Hill is the same way, but I think if you take Christian McCaffrey off the 49ers, they are not even close to the team that they are right now. And, I mean, you could say the same for Tyreek Hill, but it's just not the same in my eyes. Tyreek Hill in the Dolphins offense, he's really upgraded them a bunch, and they're a really explosive team, but Christian McCaffrey has just made this 49ers team into a polished, unstoppable offense. Tyreek Hill in the Dolphins offense is still very stoppable, even when they have a much more formidable quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. So, Peter, what is your opinion?
Francis, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I think Tyreek Hill's far and away the offensive player of the year this year. If you look at the stat sheet, you see Tyreek Hill, or on the NFL receiving leader stat sheet, you see Tyreek Hill with 1,542 yards, even though he was injured for 3.5 quarters of last game. And then next is A.J. Brown with 1,258 yards. That's more than that's a little bit less than a 300-yard difference. And not even mentioning that he has 2 more touchdowns than the next closest guy. So he's an absolute weapon on the field for the Miami Dolphins. We saw in that Monday night game versus the Titans how they suffer when he's not on the field and when he's not at 100%. He was injured at the end of that game, and you can tell they really could have used him. Whenever the ball's in his hands, it's just a sight to be seen because he's so electric and he can create so much with his elite speed. And no one ever talks about his hands and how underrated they are. He catches everything, but everyone's always so focused on his elite speed, which obviously who wouldn't be. But the truth is he's a five-tool player. He's not bad at anything. And when he's on the field versus when he's not on the field is night and day for the Dolphins. And it's really if they don't have him, they could lose any game. But when they have him on the field, their offense is a powerhouse because that mixture of speed with Mostert, A-Chain, Waddle, and then Hill, it's just they complement each other all so well, and it's really hard for a defense to stop. But Hill obviously being, the cornerstone, the powerhouse of the offense. He can kind of control the game in a way that we haven't really seen a wide receiver do before. He's probably going to get 2,000 yards this season if he has another big game. And if there's a wide receiver who gets 2,000 yards in a season, you cannot not give him the award, no matter how much you think Christian McCaffrey is more important to his team. Tyreek Hill is instrumental to the Miami Dolphins offense, and without him, they would not have as many wins as they have right now. They'd probably be closer to a 500 team. I'm going to say that because Tua just looks to Hill to create plays for himself and not just leave it all on him, leave it all on the quarterback. Hill makes plays for the Dolphins in a way that we haven't seen a wide receiver do in many, many, many years. And he deserves the Offensive Player of the Year award because he's on pace for 2,000 yards this season.
That being said, Christian McCaffrey should definitely be in the MVP race in place of Brock Purdy. And Tyreek Hill, I think he is in the MVP race, but he's obviously not going to win it. I don't know why quarterbacks always have to win it. I've seen a bunch of former NFL players explain why, but I just don't agree with any of their claims. I think if a skill position player, any non-QB player, has been more of a valuable player to their team, that they should be in the conversation. But that's another question for another day. But I want to talk about the Seahawks really quick to end off this episode. We saw Geno Smith go down with an injury, and Drew Lock started this last game against the 49ers, who we just played, and I was just thinking to myself, would I rather have Drew Lock or Geno Smith start? And it's actually a really close debate for me right now. If we wanted to win games, I would rather have Geno Smith realistically, but just as a fan watching the game, I would rather have Drew Lock start the game. When I watch football games, I haven't watched a Seahawks game and had fun and thought, wow, this offense is so good. Like the last time I think was probably last year, to be honest, but the last time I really had fun watching a Seahawks game was definitely with Russell Wilson when he was in his prime, probably in like 2019. But Drew Lock has that ability to make the Seahawks offense fun again. Geno Smith, all he does is just goes through his progression, stays in the pocket, doesn't even roll out, make any plays with his legs, and he just throws, a little 10 yards to, Jackson Smith and Jigba or something. And then maybe once in a while he'll take a deep shot to DK Metcalf that's always inaccurate, and 1 out of 10 times it lands into a completion. But Drew Lock, he has a really great pocket presence and awareness, and he was rolling out of the pocket really well. His footwork was amazing, but his decision-making was very questionable and iffy. And his arm talent is really there. Geno Smith does not have the arm talent that Drew Lock has. We saw Drew Lock being the leader of the Missouri team back when he was in college, and he looked like an absolute professional. And we saw him in the Broncos. He had stints where he looked special. So in this game alone, I know that his decision making is very questionable, but he still scored on the 49ers offense more than Geno Smith scored and when we played the 49ers the first time this season. And so, I mean, the production really shows there, even when he was making iffy, passing decisions. But, if we really tune his game up for the next week, I think we should really start Drew Lock because he really looked like maybe not the better quarterback, but definitely more fun to me. And I really enjoyed watching this game. I had a lot of fun because it was a close game with the 49ers. We've had a lot of close games recently where we lost, but I would rather we start Drew Lock than Geno Smith. What about you, Peter?
I'm actually going to have to agree with you, Francis, here. Geno, I guess he gives us a better chance of winning the game and, a better chance of not selling the game. But if you put two Seahawks games next to one another and you see Geno Smith and you see Drew Lock, Geno Smith is just the same player the whole game. He's slow. It takes him a while for him to make his progressions, and his pocket presence is just absolutely horrible. Versus Drew Lock, he has a lot of highs and lows. His lows are low. He makes horrible decisions. A lot of the times he's inaccurate, and he'll just chuck it up. But his highs, I see him, dodging a sack from Nick Bosa and running up out of a closing pocket and taking a deep shot that ends up being great. And it's just way more exciting to watch, and it's way better as a fan to watch because I know that we have a potential of making a good play, and we have a potential of him, escaping the pressure instead of just taking a sack that he does not need to take like Geno does. I also think DK Metcalf would definitely one of the biggest stars on our team would definitely like having a quarterback like Drew Lock who actually likes to chuck him the ball more, likes to put it in a place where he can get it and no one else can. Versus Geno, he doesn't really. He'll throw it to DK on like a 10-yard, 15-yard slant, but when he takes a deep shot, it's usually not very good. So I think Drew Lock gives the Seahawks more potential to win games, but then again, he can also, lose a game for you because he doesn't have that much decision making. But I think if the Seahawks were to start him the rest of the season, he could get comfortable in this offense, and with some good coaching, he could stop making really bad decisions, a lot of the time. And if he doesn't have that poor decision making like he does right now, I think he's far and away better than Geno Smith, although Geno's a veteran. But with all that being said about the Seahawks quarterback situation, I do think the way to go is to draft a quarterback in the first round this year. Maybe trade up because this quarterback situation right now, both Geno and Drew, they're not going to be franchise quarterbacks. So the Seahawks need to go in the draft, take a chance on a guy. Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, not Bo Nix. They should need to take a chance on a guy and see if they can develop him, because what we have right now is just not working whatsoever. But as for the rest of the season, I think starting Drew Lock is the way to go, because we have some big games coming up, and to give us the best chance of winning the big games, I think it's Drew Lock because of his ability to make big plays.
We're just going to wrap up our episode right there. There was an overwhelming amount of topics and news that we had to talk about, and I don't know, I think we navigated it pretty well, but there's a lot more to talk about. So next episode we'll definitely fill you guys in, maybe we'll do a little bit of some mock drafts or big boards or stuff like that for the upcoming draft. And
yeah, I just wanted to add a note here. Sorry it's been a while since our next episode, or our last episode. We've had I had COVID, and I think we had an episode before that, and then before that, Francis was gone, I was gone. So it's been hard, but from now on, I think we're going to be pretty consistent with our episodes. Francis is going on vacation next week, but after that, I think we're going to be weekly throughout the rest of the school year at least. So, yeah, just looking forward to making another episode. Make sure to follow us. Yeah.